G'day everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Bees, and this episode this week is about leadership and what's more important in leadership, consistency or adaptability. To be honest with you, I think both. Consistency is really key. It's one that a lot of leaders struggle with, and they struggle with it because they're constantly confronted with all these externalities, all these things coming at them, and that's where the human, the person, comes involved, and that might be from either an emotional response or a pragmatic response or whatever it is. But key to leadership, and the biggest frustration employees have in organizations, is that leadership is not consistent. But it's a hard thing to do. In actual fact, leaders are people. People make mistakes, and it's something I've struggled with over the last 20 years, but it's something that always is at the forefront of my mind, is to try and be as fair and as consistent as possible. That's why we put policies in place, why we put structures in place, because it helps leaders to become consistent and to be able to manage the business and its people consistently. Now, that said, that consistency can sometimes be a dark side, which is it can constrain a company. It can constrain people as well, because they take a very hard line on policy and process and those types of things, sometimes in the face of what is pragmatically and commercially a correct decision to make. And we've got plenty of examples of that, particularly when it comes to hiring people. There's a policy that says, no, we can't pay this. But in actual fact, they've got a policy that will pay this, for instance, if their kids were at high school age. They'll pay school fees, but they won't pay the first year of university because the policy says that. Yet the person is the perfect person for them. They've been through a process. It's not going to cost them any more or any less. That is a classic example of the consistency versus a pragmatic solution. And that's where adaptability comes in. Adaptability is key as a leader, so that when they've got all the evidence around them, they can actually look at that. They then can make a decision based on rationale, and are able to communicate that to their people in the organization and say, I know this is not consistent with what we've done before, but this is the scenario we find ourselves in, this is where we're at, and therefore this is why I'm making this decision, because actually I think that is the right decision, even despite what we've tried to do here before. I think if you can do that, you become a much better leader, and those in the organization will appreciate you even more as their leader as well. Love to hear your comments. Speak to you next week on the Weekly Bees.